Aku ni tak tidur lagi, ha?
You arrive at the Abbey just as the clouds begin to thicken above the hills, casting a soft gray hush over the countryside. The stone walls of the structure rise slowly into view, veined with moss and age, pressing against a sky that seems too quiet for early afternoon. The road behind you is empty, and even the breeze hesitates before entering these grounds. It is as though the very air respects something ancient here, something deeper than architecture or time. The Abbey of St. Eberhard, founded in the late 1700s by an isolated order of monks, has long been forgotten by all but the mapmakers and the murmuring locals who dare not utter its name after dusk. You walk slowly past the iron gate, which groans open as if remembering its own weight. Your shoes touch gravel, then stone, and suddenly the sound changes. There's a strange hollowness underfoot, like stepping over an empty drum. Somewhere, deep beneath this peaceful structure, there are miles of tunnels. No one agrees how many were built. No one agrees why they were built. But one thing is known. Words spoken above them don't stay above for long. The monks who once lived here were silent by vow, but their walls were not. The cloister still wraps around a central garden of dry, Forgotten herbe wormwood, feverfew, rue. The sunlight slants through cracked glass windows into long passageways where the floor always seems colder than the walls. On some parts of the ground, you swear you hear echoes that shouldn't exist, your own footsteps repeating too slowly, or a sound that returns before you even finish the step. And then there's the bell tower. They say the bell has not rung since the last monk passed in 1843. It still hangs, perfectly intact, as if waiting for a hand that no longer exists. Visitors have tried to ring it. Some even brought machinery. But it never moves, never sounds, even though the wind sometimes circles it like a curious whisper. You find yourself wandering the nave. The silence here is not peaceful. It's full, as if 1,000 unheard voices are just behind the stone, trapped in some other layer of sound. There's no echo when you speak softly, yet a cough at one end of the hall can be heard distinctly at the other. The acoustics don't follow any law you recognize. This is a place where sound has its own logic, its own agenda. At the far end of the church lies a small wooden door, half hidden behind a crumbled statue of Saint Erasmus. The door is marked not with Latin or scripture, but with a symbol circular, with 5 lines crossing it like compass points. You don't know what it means. No one ever really has. It's carved into the wood so deep that even rot has avoided it. You open it and the air changes. Cold, not in temperature, but in mood, like walking into the breath of something ancient. You descend 5 uneven stone steps into a hallway lit only by natural seams of daylight from the cracks above. The stone is damp here, the smell earthy and mineral. You can hear your breathing more clearly, as if the tunnel were repeating it to itself. Whispers. Not words, but the cadence of whispers, tucked into the silence like folds of fabric. You follow a path carved long before electricity, your hand brushing the chalky wall to stay upright. The ceiling occasionally dips low enough to force you to stoop. In one place, it widens into a circular chamber with 6 doorways leading off in different directions. They say this is the whispering room. You stand in the center and speak your name. Your name comes back to you, but not from in front, not from behind, from somewhere else, somewhere lower. There are stories that the tunnels beneath the Abbey were never meant for travel, but for sound. The monks, it's believed, crafted each hallway with precision so that certain types of prayers, certain syllables could travel, twisting and bouncing in exact rhythms. The tunnels were tuned like an instrument, an organ made of limestone and breath. Some say they weren't praying to be heard, but praying to hear. You choose one of the tunnels and begin walking. The path tilts downward ever so slightly. You notice that even when you don't speak, your presence is mirrored by something. A click here, a sigh there. As if the tunnel isn't just reacting, it's listening. They say the monks once held a ritual down here at midnight. Only the most devout were allowed to take part. They would recite a passage in total darkness, and the walls would reply and chant. No one ever wrote down what the chant said. No one remembers. But those who completed the ritual would return with their eyes wide open and never close them again while inside the abbey. You pause. The silence presses closer. You hear it again, a voice this time. Not yours. Not like yours. A sound so soft it might be mistaken for memory or warning. You walk deeper. The further you descend into the tunnel, the less the upper world seems to matter. The light that once slanted through cracks above has given way to a muted gloom, a darkness not quite complete, yet fully consuming in its quietness. Your fingers trail along the damp stone wall as the corridor turns, narrows, then opens again without pattern. Somewhere behind you, the entrance feels sealed, not by a door but by silence. There is no going back, at least not the way you came. As you press onward, a soft rhythmic sound begins to accompany you, distant, steady, like breath echoing through stone. It doesn't belong to you. It doesn't change with your steps. It seems to exist separately, patiently. You pause. The sound pauses. You breathe. It doesn't. Then it begins again. You recall something from an old guidebook you read before arriving here, written in the 1920s by a half-blind historian who spent a single night within the abbey. He claimed the monks had built the tunnels not for escape, nor for burial, but for containment. Sound, he wrote, was a living thing, a creature that grew when given space and repetition. And the abbey's design was a kind of cage keeping the whispers inside where they belonged. And the bell? A failsafe, not meant to warn the outside, but to silence the inside. You come upon a fork in the tunnel. One path curves upward, drier and lighter. The other dips in a shadow, toward a chill that clings to your skin like damp cloth. You choose the lower passage. Its floor is smoother, worn down by centuries of quiet feet. Soon, you arrive at a wooden door half-rotted, barely attached to its frame. Its hinges are etched with symbols you've seen before, mirrored faintly in the circular marking on the surface upstairs. You nudge the door open. It resists gently, like something reluctant to be disturbed. The air inside smells like old ink, beeswax, and something faintly metallic. You found the scriptorium. Stone desks line the room, each fitted with a wooden stool and an iron candle holder. Dozens of thick, leather-bound books remain some open midward, as though the monks simply stood up and never returned. Pages ripple slightly in a currentless breeze. The candle wax has melted into strange shapes, like tiny skeletal trees frozen mid-growth. You pick up a volume. The language is Latin, but the script is unusual tighter, more urgent. You flip through until one page catches your eye. A diagram of the Abbey tunnels, drawn in layered spirals. A note beside it, in a different hand, reads, "Only speak what you are willing to hear returned." For the walls will echo not what is true, but what is believed. Your eyes rest on the far side of the room, where the wall appears solid, but doesn't sound it. You step closer and knock once, twice. Hollow. You run your fingers along the mortar and find a thin seam. A secret door. There's no handle, only a shallow indentation the size of a handprint. You press your palm into the cold stone. And after a moment's stillness, something shifts. A mechanism clicks. Dust spills. The door grinds open half an inch. Enough. You slide inside. The next chamber is unlike the others. No desks. No books. Just a long, low bench carved directly from the rock and the scent of wax and oil. At the center of the space is a crude wooden altar, blackened with age and soot. A single candle sits atop it unlit, but freshly replaced. You touch the wax. It's warm. This room wasn't abandoned. Behind the altar is a shallow alcove within it, the outline of a man kneeling, carved into the wall. His hands are pressed to his face in silent prayer or anguish. His head is bowed low. The figure is unmarked except for one thing, a hollow circle where the mouth should be. Not scratched or chipped, but smoothly drilled. A perfect hole, as though the monk had spoken one final word too loud and it left a mark. You don't speak here. Instead, you listen. You begin to notice that the walls aren't silent after all. They hum faintly in a tone just beneath hearing. Not a note, not quite a voice, but a resonance. As though something within the stone is alive, vibrating and waiting. For what? A word? A name? Or a listener? Your eyes return to the altar. Beneath the candle, a parchment has been tucked into a crack. You pull it free and unfold it gently. The ink is faded, the handwriting slanted with haste. He came to transcribe, not to believe. But the tunnels heard him and believed on his behalf. He walks them still without his name. A chill works its way across your shoulders. You glance toward the doorway, but there is none. The door you entered through is gone. The wall has sealed itself silently behind you. There is only the bench, the altar, the carved figure in the wall, and the humming stone waiting patiently. You do not panic. Somehow, panic would feel disrespectful here. Instead, you sit, you breathe, and you listen as the tunnel hums the first syllables of your name, not the full word. Just the shape of it. It curls softly against the walls, echoing once, then twice, until you're no longer sure if it's fading or becoming more real. You do not answer. Not yet. You sit quietly in the stone-carved chamber, as the faint hum of the tunnels murmurs around you, like an unseen tide, always just below the threshold of clarity. As if speaking in a language meant only for walls. The candle atop the altar remains unlit, yet the room is dimly illuminated by the eerie glow of the limestone itself, which seems to absorb light and give it back slowly, like breath held and exhaled with great care. The echo of your name fades, or perhaps it never truly sounded aloud. Instead, it now lives in the walls, in the soft reverberations that pass through the stone like invisible threads. You stand, unsure whether you've sat for minutes or hours, and approach the altar again. This time, you notice something you didn't before. The bench isn't quite symmetrical. One end extends further beneath the alcove, its edge worn smooth from countless touches. You crouch beside it and run your fingers along the groove. The stone gives way, slightly, with a soft grinding sound. A drawer. Inside lies a worn leather-bound journal. Smaller than the others you've seen, clearly personal. You open it carefully. The first page reads in delicate script. Brother Alric in his final days. To write in silence is to remember loudly. The entries are uneven, broken by days or perhaps weeks of absence. But they begin to tell a story. Of the tunnels, yes, but also of something else. Something waiting. Brother Alric had been one of the last monks to remain after the Abbey was abandoned. His fellow brothers left one by one, citing illness, fear, or strange dreams that would not fade with the dawn. Alric, though, stayed. He had become obsessed with the idea that the Abbey was more than a place of worship, that it had been built to contain something. Not evil, not divine, just aware. The journal speaks of his experiments, how he would whisper nonsense into corners and wait to see which walls would answer. How he began sleeping inside different chambers to feel the change in tone from one to the next. He claimed that certain phrases were amplified, while others were absorbed entirely, as though the walls had preferences. That one night, he spoke aloud a phrase he didn't remember learning, and the tunnel beneath his room began to thrum for hours. He writes, "When I lay down in the whispering room, I do not dream. I become the dream." The final entry is short. A single line. I have spoken too much. The walls are no longer listening. They are waiting. The pages that follow are blank. You close the book and sit back against the bench, your mind drifting. There's something almost hypnotic in the low vibrations of the room, like the distant rhythm of breath or tide or thought. A presence without form. It doesn't frighten you, not yet. It simply observes. You decide to move again. This chamber offers no exit. But the walls are not always truthful. You run your hands along the seam where the door once stood, and you find a ridge small, deliberate. You press your fingers there. A hiss of air, and the wall gently loosens. A hidden door slides open into the dark. Beyond it, a narrow hallway stretches out, so low you must stoop, so silent Even your breath sounds foreign. It is warmer here, not with heat, but with age. The scent changes: old cloth, dried flowers, something almost sweet. You round a corner and find yourself in a space unlike any before. It's a chapel, or once was. A small stone pulpit sits at the far end of the room, and pews made of dark wood line both sides, most rotted or shattered. Candles, long extinguished, stand like skeletal fingers along the walls. But what draws your eye is the mural behind the pulpit. Faded paint clings stubbornly to the stone, depicting an image far removed from typical religious iconography. A figure stands in the center, neither monk nor saint, but cloaked and faceless, surrounded by concentric rings of people kneeling, their mouths covered. No halos, no divine light, only silence. Below the mural is an inscription, nearly illegible. You rub away some dust and trace the words slowly with your eyes. In stillness, the voice below is clearest. In silence, it becomes yours. You step closer. The pulpit is cracked, hollow, and inside it rests a small clay jar, sealed with wax. There's something written on the wax in what looks like blood-colored ink. Do not open unless forgotten. What could that mean? You leave the jar untouched. Instead, you examine the floor around the pulpit. The tiles form a pattern, subtle, worn by time, but clearly intentional. Spirals again, circles within circles. You stand in the center and whisper a single word. Hello. Nothing. But after a moment, something replies, not in sound, but in feeling. A vibration under your feet, rising through your bones. Not strong, not jarring, just present. You kneel. The pulse continues, steady and slow. You close your eyes, and you swear you hear it again, that hum, that tone, now slightly altered, as if acknowledging you, as if remembering. It welcomes you now. The Abbey is no longer a place. It is a listener, and perhaps always has been. The floor beneath you pulses gently, like the slow, measured heartbeat of something vast and unseen. Kneeling at the spiral's center, you feel strangely anchored, as though the silence around you has gained weight, layering itself into something textured, something alive. The Abbey no longer feels like stone and dust and echo, but like a memory that remembers you. You rise slowly, careful not to disrupt the rhythm of whatever presence breathes beneath this ancient chapel. The pulpit behind you casts a long, crooked shadow in the dim light, its sharp edge curling along the spiral floor, as if pointing towards something still unrevealed. You whisper a guy softly this time, a question rather than a greeting. Who are you? No reply in words, but the silence sharpens. A subtle ringing grows in your ears, not painful, not even unpleasant, but focused. The spiral at your feet seems to shimmer faintly, like heat rising off stone. You blink and it's gone. You step off the spiral carefully and move toward a side alcove you hadn't noticed before. Behind a half-collapsed pew, a narrow corridor leads deeper into the Abbey's underground heart. This path feels older, less finished. The stonework becomes rougher, more organic, as if it was carved not with tools, but with insistence. You pass what must have once been cells, tiny rooms, each no larger than a closet. Inside, stone benches, empty hooks, and small niches in the wall for candles or relics. But one room is different. You feel it before you see it. A pressure in the air, as if the tunnel is holding its breath. Inside this cell, the floor has been covered with old cloths, faded tapestries folded and stacked in uneven layers. At the center sits a wooden frame, shaped like a cradle, but far too large and oddly shaped. Not quite circular, not square. It resembles a cocoon, open at the top, and within it bones, not human, not animal, too long, too fine, as if shaped for something that once lived in echoes, not flesh. The ribs are spiraled inward, each narrowing into itself, forming a hollow cage where no heart could ever beat. At the foot of this structure lies another parchment, its ink half washed away. You could just make out a passage. When it could no longer speak, we built it a mouth of stone. When it could no longer be seen, we gave it walls of memory. It dreams still below. You step back slowly, the weight of what you've seen anchoring itself in your mind. This isn't folklore. It isn't a story whispered by candlelight. It's architecture, a container, or a shell. Whatever sleeps here does not rest alone. You continue down the hall, the air now tinged with something metallic, old iron, or perhaps dried blood. The passage narrows again until you reach a stone archway carved with more of the circular sigils. Beneath the largest one, a single line in etched Latin reads, Loquitur, ut audiatur. It speaks, so it may be heard. You cross the threshold. This room is colder than any you've entered before, not due to temperature, but because of silence. The sound here is dead. No footsteps, no breath. Even your heartbeat feels distant, as though muffled by centuries. At the center of the room stands a pedestal made of polished black stone, out of place among the crumbling limestone. On its surface, a thin sheet of metal rests flat, etched with concentric circles that ripple outward like the pattern of raindrops. You place your hand on the metal. For the first time, the Abbey speaks. Not aloud, not with words, but through memory. Images fill your mind, not like visions, but impressions, torches descending into dark tunnels, chants echoing backward, a voice so low it rumbles through bone. You see the monks, gathered in the very room you now stand in, heads bowed, not in reverence, but in negotiation. They were not the masters of this place. They were its caretakers. And now, so are you. The memory fades, and your hand releases the metal. The air begins to change. You hear it now, an unmistakable, slow rhythm echoing from deep below the pedestal. Not the sound of footsteps or machinery. A breath, drawn in, released. Again, the walls shift subtly. A door opens at the far side of the chamber, revealing a staircase carved in the shape of a spiral, descending farther than your eye can follow. The hum grows stronger. You hesitate, but not from fear. It's a strange pull, a recognition, as if whatever lies beneath has been waiting specifically for you. You begin to descend. Each step feels softer than the last, cushioned by time. The walls grow smoother, warmer, not with heat, but with presence. You don't feel watched. You feel remembered, like an old name finally recalled. There is no light here, yet you see clearly. There is no sound here, yet you hear everything. You're no longer walking through tunnels built by monks. You are walking through the body of something ancient, and it remembers how to breathe. The spiral staircase narrows with every turn, and still you descend. The walls, once stone and rough-edged, are now smooth and seamless, as though polished not by hand, but by purpose. You run your fingers along them, and they feel warm, faintly pulsing with that same slow rhythm you first felt in the whispering room. Down here, the air does not feel stale. It feels aware. You have long since lost track of how far beneath the earth you've come. There is no echo of the world above, no dripping water, no shifting stone, only that low vibration, pulsing like the quiet tick of a faraway clock, not marking time, but waiting through it. And then, without warning, the steps end. The passage opens into a vast chamber unlike anything above. The walls curve outward in a perfect dome, and above, a smooth ceiling vanishes into shadow. In the center stands a large, circular platform of polished stone, surrounded by small plinths evenly spaced, like the hours on a clock. Each plinth holds a single object, a candle, a feather, a stone carved with runes, a length of rusted chain, a bird skull, a glass vial filled with ash. You step toward the platform, drawn not by curiosity, but by invitation. Your foot crosses onto the polished stone, and the hum intensifies not louder, but closer. You can feel it inside your chest now, in your teeth, behind your eyes. It's not frightening. It's familiar, as though you've been here before, not in this life. Perhaps not even in a dream, but in something older. You kneel again, and the platform responds. The plinths around you begin to glow faintly, each object catching light from a source you cannot see. A breeze begins to circle, though there is no wind carrying with it a sound just barely recognizable. A voice. It does not speak in words. It speaks in memory. You see those who came before robed, not in cloth, but in silence, who walked barefoot through the tunnels and whispered only once in their lives. You see what they whispered to? A shape, coiled deep beneath the surface. Not a creature, not a god. A presence, old as the soil, wrapped in sound like flesh. It did not speak. It resonated, and the earth responded. The monks did not build the tunnels. They uncovered them. And when they heard what the stone remembered, they stayed. You see now that the abbey above was not a place of faith, it was a buffer. A delicate crust between the surface world and something vast and unfinished beneath. Something that does not need to move to reach you. Something that does not sleep. Because it is the sleep between all things. You open your eyes. The chamber is still. The glow has faded. But the platform beneath you feels different now. Not warm or closer. As though it has accepted your presence. Not as a visitor, but as a successor. You rise. A path opens behind you that wasn't there before, an arched doorway leading into a corridor glowing faintly with the same amber hue as the whispering room above. You walk forward, slowly, reverently. You understand now that you're not exploring the abbey. You're being shown parts of it, and only the parts meant for you. The new passage is different from the others. It feels more deliberate, less like a tunnel and more like a throat. Its walls are ribbed, lined with fine carvings of spiral symbols, musical notation, and something like language, but not one you know. You trail your hand across the wall, and where you touch, you hear a faint tone, each symbol tuned differently, like pressing keys on a living instrument. As you walk, you experiment. A tap here, a brush there. You begin to understand. This place can be played. Somehow, deep beneath the ground, the monks created a place where sound was not just sacred, it was structural. Sound built this place. It holds it together, and perhaps it keeps something inside, or keeps you from forgetting. The corridor widens once more, leading to a domed chamber with walls covered in what appears to be parchment dozens, maybe hundreds plastered across the stone in a kind of mosaic. Some are fresh. Others are so ancient they crumble at the corners. They are letters, transcripts, prayers, confessions, each written by someone who came before you. You recognize the same tight handwriting of Brother Auric, scattered among others. But you also see messages in languages you cannot name. Some are written upside down. Others loop in spirals, designed to be read aloud in circles. A few bear only single words. Hollow. Return. Still. You step toward one written in modern ink. It is short. It took my voice, but gave me peace. I never wanted the surface anyway. Beneath, it is a blank page, clean and waiting. A quill rests nearby in a shallow groove in the stone. You do not ask what to write. You already know. You dip the quill into a waiting well of ink and begin. The words are not yours. They never were. They rise up from somewhere deeper beneath memory, beneath thought, and flow onto the page like water, finding its level. And when you finish, the ink does not smudge. It dries instantly. You have added your part to the Abbey's record. You are remembered now, and the Abbey has begun to remember you back. You step away from the wall of parchments, leaving your own words behind. They're not just yours, though, are they? The sentence you wrote feels at once foreign and familiar, as if whispered into your ear by someone standing just behind your shoulder, and yet, no one is there. The corridor beyond is darker now, not with menace, but with intention, as though you're being guided inward, deeper still. This is no longer descent. This is arrival. The path narrows into a low hallway, forcing you to duck slightly. You trail your fingers along the walls, still warm and faintly pulsing, like the skin of some slumbering colossus. The texture of the stone changes subtly, less like quarried rock, more like something organic, smooth but not polished, shaped by pressure, time, and purpose. A scent lingers here, beeswax, ash, and something you can't name. Something that smells the way a forgotten lullaby might feel. Eventually, the hall opens into a round room perfectly symmetrical, ceiling lost in shadows above. No windows, no torchlight. Yet the room is dimly lit with a colorless glow, a strange ambient presence that outlines everything gently, like light remembered. In the center, there is a well. You approach. It is shallow no more than shoulder height and rimmed with ancient bronze, worn down to a dull green. There's no rope or bucket, just a deep, round shaft, carved from the same seamless stone as everything else. You look down. You expect darkness. Instead, you find your reflection, not in water, but in stillness itself. Your face looks slightly altered, not aged, not distorted, just quieted, as if your reflection has learned to listen better than you ever have. Its eyes move half a second behind your own, and it doesn't blink when you do. You step back, and the reflection remains. From somewhere behind you, a sound. Soft. A footstep. You turn, but the room is empty. Still, you felt it. The shift in pressure. The weight of another presence. You don't panic. You've learned by now panic has no purchase here. It slides off the walls like spilled oil. This place does not feed on fear. It feeds on attention. And something has turned its attention to you. You stand still, breathe deeply, and listen. That familiar hum returns. Not through your feet this time, but through your bones. A deep, resonant thrum that fills the space within you, tuning your heartbeat, matching your breath. You're being attuned, brought into rhythm with the Abbey's slow, persistent memory. There is a doorway now where none was before. You do not question it. You pass through. On the other side, the architecture changes again. The walls here are etched with names. Thousands of them. Some you can read. Others have been worn away by time, their letters curling like leaves caught in fire. Some names appear multiple times, layered atop themselves, as though rewritten in different lifetimes. Others glow, faintly still alive in memory, still echoing. You run your hand along one of the glowing names. It flickers, and in that instant, you are elsewhere. You stand barefoot in the whispering tunnels of centuries ago. The robes you wear are coarse and heavy. A candle burns in your left hand, its flame steady despite the windless air. Ahead of you, other monks chant not in Latin, not in any language but in tones. Wordless syllables repeated in precise patterns. They're not praying. They're keeping something asleep. Then it fades. You're back in the tunnel of names, heart calm, mind unshaken. The Abbey has begun showing you its memories, not in visions, but through resonance matching the echoes inside your body to those stored in its endless stone. You continue onward past the names, past the echoes. Eventually, you find yourself before a final door. It's different from the others. Not wood, not stone. It is made of sound. At first, it appears as a shimmering distortion in the air, a place where the world wavers. But when you reach out, your hand meets resistance like pressing into thick glass. The vibrations ripple outward, low and slow. Inscribed in the frame around this shimmering veil is a phrase. Enter not with words, only with silence remembered. You close your eyes. You silence your thoughts. You empty yourself of name, of memory, of voice. And the door opens. You step through. The chamber beyond is vast, circular, endless. There is no floor. You walk on stillness. There are no walls. You are surrounded by breath. At the center floats a figure not physical, not ghostly. A presence, spiraled like a sleeping ear, pulsing gently with light and hum. It has no eyes, no limbs, no face. But it listens. Its awareness reaches you, not as speech or sight, but as understanding. You feel the weight of its memory. All who have come before you, all who have whispered into the stone, all who have stayed. It doesn't ask you a question. It already knows your answer, and still it waits. You do not speak. You cannot. The rules of this space are not governed by words. They are governed by recognition, not of what you are, but of what you've become in the silence. Before you, the coiled presence pulses with slow, soundless waves like thought made into temperature, like feeling shaped into air. You stand still, and it surrounds you not with arms, not with shadow, but with remembrance. You feel yourself being read. Every step you've taken through the Abbey, every breath drawn beneath its arches, every thought you try to quiet, they rise now, not in judgment, but in chorus, a quiet litany of self. The presence does not weigh your worth. It simply listens, completely, and still it waits. For response, not spoken aloud. You close your eyes. You allow the hum to settle beneath your skin. The rhythm matches your heart again. Then deeper, slower, until it feels as if your body is no longer moving, breathing, or even existing in the way it once did. You're now only echo. An echo is welcome here. The space shifts not visually, but in tone. You feel it deepen around you. A low harmonic opens like a door. The chamber expands. A memory from a life that may not have been yours rises, unbidden. You're seated in a stone cell with 4 others, heads bowed, hands folded. You are all humming not as monks, but as guardians. The door is sealed with prayer. Outside, footsteps echo that do not belong to anybody. One of you trembles, and the vibration in the room falters. The door pulses. Something outside leans close. You are returned to yourself. The presence pulses once. Not approval, not denial, acknowledgement. It begins to draw back, not in retreat, but in completion. Its spiral form softens, uncoiling like fog into the endless dark. But where it was, something remains a stillness more complete than silence. You're no longer a guest. You're a part of the memory now. Your feet touch solid ground again, though you never felt the shift. The dome overhead lowers, not because it collapsed, but because your awareness has returned to smaller space. You're in a chamber once again, no longer hollow, no longer endless, just quiet. In the center of the room where the presence hovered, a small stone pedestal now rises, plain and unadorned. Resting atop is a simple object, a bell. Not large, not ornate, brass dulled by time. No clapper inside. You understand without needing to question. This is the bell from the tower above. Or perhaps this is its memory. The monks tried to ring it. They used tools. They used ropes and fire and levers. But it never moved, because it wasn't meant to move in sound. It was meant to move in presence. You reach out and touch it. The room disappears, not into darkness, into tone. A wave of deep, subsonic vibration pushes outward from the point of contact, passing through you, through the tunnels, through the entire shape of the Abbey. It doesn't echo. It awakens. Every chamber above, every spiral stair, every stone carved in secrecy, it responds. Slowly, gratefully, like an old instrument finding its tune again after centuries of dust. Then quiet, a final, soft inhalation from beneath the earth. You open your eyes and find yourself seated in the whispering room, once more the one above, where you spoke your name to the air. Only now, the room is warmer. Not with heat, with company. You are alone, and yet not. You feel the Abbey around you as a memory that includes you. A song that now holds your name in harmony. You glance toward the wall, where someone once carved a figure kneeling in prayer. There is a new figure beside it now. Not carved by hand, but formed by tone. A simple shape, head bowed, listening. You rise slowly. Stones realign underfoot, and when you reach the narrow steps upward, they feel lighter than before. Above, the Abbey is as you left it. Dust still clings to the corners. The garden is still dry. You step beyond the Abbey's gate as the wind picks up, brushing the overgrown grass in lazy arcs. The sky above is still the same soft gray you remember. But now it feels different, like a surface stretched thin over something much deeper. Your feet touch the gravel path that once carried you here, but the ground does not greet you with silence anymore. It hums faintly beneath your soles, a whisper carried upward through the stone. You walk slowly, half expecting the gate to close behind you, but it doesn't. It remains open, as if to say, at first it's subtle, a fleeting tone behind the wind, a rhythm in your dreams that matches the spiral beneath the earth. Then, more directly, light bulbs flicker in patterns, door hinges creak in fifths and octaves, and sometimes, when you speak too quickly, your words return to you before you finish saying them. One night, unable to sleep, you find yourself whispering into the corner of your room. Nothing but a soft question. Are you there? The walls do not respond, but your bones do. A vibration in your chest. Not frightening, comforting. As though the space within you has become resonant. As though you've become a hallway for listening. You begin writing again. Not a journal this time, but a kind of notation. Tones, symbols, spirals. You don't know what they mean. You don't try to. You're not writing them for you. Sometimes, as you sleep, you hear the bell. Not ringing, turning. Somewhere, deep in the folds of the world, the presence you met at the heart of the Abbey still listens. It is not finished, but neither are you. You begin to understand what Brother Alaric meant when he wrote, "I have spoken too much." The walls are no longer listening. They are waiting. The Abbey waits in silence, but not for someone to disturb it. It waits for someone who understands how to keep it. And slowly, quietly, the world begins to show you others like yourself. You pass a man on a train humming a 5-note melody that matches the one whispered in your sleep. A letter arrives in the mail, and signed, containing only a map of old Europe with a red mark at another forgotten Abbey one that shares the spiral symbol. And you realize the Abbey of St. Eberhard is not alone. There are other places, other guardians, other echoes. You begin traveling. Some sites are sealed, overgrown, or buried beneath cities. Others are intact, seemingly untouched by time. But always, in their deepest chambers, you feel the hum. Always, there is a presence not the same as before, but similar. Not a copy of the original, just another note in the same chord. In one abandoned chapel, you find a wall with names like the one you saw beneath the Abbey. You trace them gently and feel the same pull memory awakening within you. Some names are strangers. Some impossibly feel like kin. One name flickers when you touch it, and a clear tone resonates in the air. You write yours next to it. The ink dries instantly. You are not alone. Eventually, you stop keeping track of time. Not because you're lost, but because time in this work is different. It is measured not in minutes or months, but in echoes. In presences remembered. In silences kept. Sometimes, on long walks in the quiet woods, you hear the low hum beneath your feet and smile. The world is louder than most people realize. But if you listen not with ears, but with space, you can hear what waits beneath it all. You never see the presence again as it was spiraled, floating, aware. But that's not because it's gone. It no longer needs to appear. And the bell in your memory still turns. You no longer mark your days and hours. You mark them in resonances in the faint, slow pulses that rise through certain floors. In the low vibrations carried through old pipes and church walls. In the spiral-bound notebooks filled with symbols you never studied, but now write with ease. Your sense of the world has changed. Where once you saw cities, you now see layers. Beneath the pavement, memory. Beneath memory, rhythm. And beneath rhythm, listening. You travel without itinerary. Not aimless, but guided by tones, by patterns, by absences. There are long days of silence, spent wandering overgrown fields or half-collapsed staircases, waiting for a hum to begin beneath your feet. Sometimes it never does. Sometimes it starts the moment you arrive. One evening, you find yourself drawn to a coastal cliff in Brittany, where a crumbling chapel clings to the edge of the sea. Inside, the wind moves strangely, whistling in 5-note patterns that repeat every few minutes. Beneath the altar is a hatch. You descend into a spiral tunnel smaller than the one at St. Eberhard, but unmistakably of the same design. You do not light a torch. You don't need to. The memory of the Abbey glows inside you, and it guides your steps. At the end of the tunnel, a smooth black panel with no hinges and no keyhole. But there is a mark pressed into its center, your own name. Not written, not carved. Imprinted, like the echo of something spoken deeply and long ago. You rest your palm against it. It opens. Inside, silence. The kind that feels full. The kind that remembers. You sit. You listen. And you begin to hum not a melody, not a song, but a tone. The one the bell taught you, low and even, spiraling gently inward. The chamber joins in. Not in harmony, not in mimicry, but in agreement. You're not alone here. You're never alone anymore. Weeks later, you're invited wordlessly to a gathering. It happens once a year, and only those who've heard the hum receive its call. The location changes. A derelict abbey in Portugal. A collapsed temple in northern Thailand. A deserted synagogue in Poland with a strangely spiraled Torah scroll hidden beneath its floorboards. You meet others like yourself. They do not speak much, but they nod when your tones align. At these gatherings, there are no sermons, no rituals, only listening. Sometimes, one of you is called forward, not by vote, not by voice. The space itself chooses. One year, you are chosen. You stand at the center of a spiral chamber carved into basalt. Beneath your bare feet is a symbol you've seen only once before in the deepest part of St. Eberhard. A spiral surrounded by hands. Open palms. Reaching inward, not out. You begin to hum. The others join you, one by one. 32 tones at once. None louder than breath. The chamber begins to shift. Not visibly. Acoustically. The air becomes thick with memory, shared not through words, but through presence. You see their journeys, their awakenings, their silences kept, their silences broken. When the humming stops, something remains. A tone that none of you made, but all of you brought back. It settles into the stone like a new layer of memory. It will remain long after you're gone. Later, you walk the empty roads again. You feel the quiet beneath train stations, under bridges, in the sigh of trees. You see the spiral symbol more often now, not painted or carved, but forming naturally. The swirl of leaves, the worn pattern on church tiles, the way footsteps echo in certain alleys. You're not searching anymore. You are maintaining. One night, you return to St. Eberhard. The Abbey is the same. The bell still turns in the tower. But something has changed in the air. Inside the whispering room, you sit once more. The stone bench is familiar beneath your hands. You close your eyes and hum the tone again. The one that belongs here. The one you learn below. And you hear a reply. Not from the walls. From the presence itself. It speaks without words. We remember you. You remembered us. The silence is kept. You bow your head. A single tear rolls down your cheek, not from grief, but from fullness. There is no higher calling than to be heard by silence itself. You leave the Abbey at dawn. The sky is painted in pale spirals of mist. The ground hums faintly beneath your feet. You walk until the horizon curves, and then farther still. Every step a whisper, every breath a bell. The land rolls out before you like an unfinished soft hills, skeletal trees. Long abandoned farmhouses sunken into the soil, like memories returning to their source. You walk without map or compass. Your direction is not defined by landmarks, but by tone. A gentle pressure in the chest. A subtle shift in the wind's rhythm. The pull of resonance. You pass through a village so quiet you can hear the hinges of its empty flagpole turning slowly in the breeze. The buildings lean in toward the street like old men sharing secrets. You pause in front of a chapel barely larger than a cottage. Its windows are gone. Ivy climbs the stone in patient spirals. You step inside. There is no altar, no pious, just dust, and a circular groove worn into the floor. You recognize the pattern instantly. Spiral. But this one is incomplete. Only the outer ring remains visible, the rest buried under layers of soil and time. You kneel and place your hand on the stone. The hum here is faint, shallow, like a candle long extinguished, whose warmth still lingers in the wick. You whisper the tone. Yours. The one you've carried from abbey to abbey, across country lines and beneath centuries. And slowly, you feel it. A second tone joins yours. Wavering, weakened, but present. It is not calling for help. It is remembering how to be heard. You spend the night in the chapel, sleeping with your back to the spiral and your heart against the hum. In the morning, the wind carries a new rhythm through the trees. You rise, leave no mark, and continue walking. That evening, a letter is waiting for you and in 3 towns away. It has no return address, no stump, just your name on the envelope and a folded piece of parchment inside. There is a monastery beneath the sea, where silence cannot escape the tide. It waits at low moon, in a hollow behind the rocks. Bring the tone with you. You fold the letter and commit it to memory. The next week finds you standing at the edge of salt-stained cliff, overlooking a black ocean. The waves breathe in slow spirals, each one a whisper echoing against the rocks. The moon hangs lower than it should, as if crouched to listen. You wait. At midnight, the tide recedes. A passage reveals itself narrow, jagged, unnatural. A slash in the coastline that descends into darkness. You follow. The sea breathes behind you, but does not pursue. The tunnel spirals downward naturally at first, then precisely. The walls are slick, not with algae, but with ancient oils, whale fat, pine resin, melted beeswax. You see markings again. Spiral glyphs. Open eyes. Crescent moons ringing stone ears. At the bottom, you find a door made of layered coral and bronze. Symbols etched deep. A slit in the center, shaped like a tuning fork. You hum. The door opens. The monastery beneath the sea is not dead. It is dormant. Inside, stone corridors stretch outward like roots. The air is dense, salted, and still. Bones rest in alcoves, dressed in water-worn robes. Bells hang from the ceiling, rusted and silent. But your tone reawakens them. One by one, they begin to turn. Not swing. Turn. Spiraling in slow, delicate arcs. Responding not to wind, but to presence. You kneel before a circular dais. Place your hands on it. Let the hum rise from your chest and into the chamber. In return, the sea replies not with thunder or surge, but with memory. You see them, the monks of this sunken place, humming beneath the tide, writing with brine and ash, binding silence into kelp scrolls and submerging them in stone urns. Their voices were not loud, but their silence was preserved. Now, so is yours. When you rise, the bells continue turning behind you. The hallway echoes with soft resonance, as if the sea itself has begun to remember its listening. You climb the tunnel again. When you reach the surface, the tide has not returned. You walk back across the hollowed shore. Above, the moon pulses once faint and low. Not a light, a tone. Later, in a quiet field, you find an old child's wind chime hanging from a half-dead tree. It's made of seashells and bone. When you pass, it rings. Once, perfectly in tune. The world is waking. Or perhaps, it's relearning the art of silence. You leave the coast and head inland once more. The sea behind you hums faintly, a resonance you now carry in your chest. Every tone you've collected, the spirals in the Abbey, the submerged bells beneath the tide, the whispers of nameless stone rooms, they live inside you like a song only silence can hear. You do not keep a journal anymore. You have become the record. You move through towns that do not exist on maps, cross paths with buildings no one admits remembering. In one village, the church has no steeple, but its floorboards creak in the exact pattern of a lullaby you heard beneath the old French monastery. You stop and listen. You hum once. The creak responds, not with a note, but with recognition. You're not calling anything. You're just reminding the wood that it knows how to sing. In another place, cold and mountainous, you find a hut surrounded by cairns. Each stone tower is stacked with a precision that suggests reverence. You find no one inside the hut, but there is warmth in the floor. The fire long gone, yet its echo still warming the earth. You sleep and dream of a spiral of snowflakes falling in perfect time. You wake to find one of the cairns has collapsed, but not scattered, rearranged into a spiral, pointing toward a mountain trail you hadn't seen before. You follow. At the end, a cave. In it, silence deeper than any you've known. Here, no echoes return. You kneel and hum your tone. Is swallowed whole. And that is when you realize this silence is not empty. It is listening with such intensity, it leaves no room for sound to return. This place is not a record. It is a listener. You leave a simple mark on the wall, not your name, just a spiral and a bell. That is enough. Later, in a city subway, you hear it again, the tone. Not yours, but adjacent. Someone else is humming, faintly, behind the platform columns. You do not seek them. They do not approach you. But you nod as you board the train. And in that nod, you both know. Another guardian walks this path. The network grows. One morning, a stranger places a book beside your coffee cup and leaves without a word. The cover is blank. Inside, handwritten pages filled with spiral patterns and tone markers you've never seen. but they feel true. A new note in the chord. Another whisper added to the silence. You spend the next year traveling to places that only appear when approached on foot in silence. You avoid highways. You abandon the internet. Not from fear, but from reverence. Your world has narrowed to tone, time, and terrain, and it is so much wider than before. At a monastery in the Pyrenees, you descend into a wine cellar long since dry. The barrels are gone, but the spiral groove in the floor remains. You walk it slowly, humming, and when you finish the final loop, a breeze cold and impossible rises from the center. It smells of parchment. You dig carefully. Beneath the stone is a sealed tin tube. Inside, a single piece of cloth embroidered with symbols from the other abbeys. Beneath it, a short passage in the old monk's hand. There will always be one more spiral. There will always be one more bell. Keep the silence, and it will keep you. You weep for a long time, not for grief, from continuity. You are not preserving these places. You are not protecting them. You are participating in them. You are part of the hum now. And when you are silent, the silence remembers. You return again to St. Eberhard, not out of necessity, but rhythm. It is time. The gate welcomes you. The garden is a little greener than before. In the whispering room, the stone bench has been worn deeper, shaped by years of kneeling. You sit. You hum. This time, the tone is not returned. This time, the silence listens longer. And then, it replies with something new. A chord, rising from the earth. 3 notes. Yours. The seas. And one you've never heard before. It trembles through you, and you know. Another spiral has been carved. Somewhere, someone else is humming. And the silence? It is growing. You sit with the chord still resonating in your body long after it fades from the room. 3 notes. Not merely sounds. Presences. Each tone a place, a memory, a guardian. Yours low, steady, learned in the depths of St. Eberhard. The second, oceanic, slow as tide, tasted in salt and darkness beneath the cliff. The third, unfamiliar. It hovers on the edge of your understanding, like a name you almost remember from a dream. It's distant, but not unreachable. An invitation, not a warning. You feel it curl behind your ribs like a question not yet asked. You leave the abbey again, the stones warmer beneath your feet than before. The bell does not turn this time. It does not need to. It has already told you what it needed to say. And so, you walk again, across hills where the grass grows in rings, through forests where the birds fall silent in spiral clearings, over frozen rivers whose currents sing in harmonics when crossed barefoot. You listen always, not for speech, not for signs, but for resonance. And in a long-forgotten corner of the world, in the steep interior of old Anatolia, you find a village with no name on any map. The homes are built from black stone, flat-roofed and angular, clustered tightly around a central square with no well, no market, no monument. Only a circle of uncarved pillars, humming faintly in the moonlight. The villagers do not speak your language. They do not speak much at all. But when they see you, they hum back. A different tone. Higher. Faintly metallic, with a softness that lingers in the ears after the sound ends. You do not ask where it leads. You already know. The entrance to the underground is hidden behind a goat stall. The floor beneath the hay folds downward in a steep spiral staircase, clearly much older than the village above. You descend. The third tone grows louder. Below, the air changes again. Dry. Vibrant. It crackles with memory, like the moment before a note is struck on an old, well-kept instrument. Every stone you pass is engraved not with words or figures, but lines. Not spiral, but radial, like the lines of a bell when seen from above. A room waits at the bottom. Octagonal. Bare. Its walls are black glass. In the center, a tuning fork as tall as a man. It stands alone in a basin of polished brass, its base submerged in what looks like dark water. You step forward and kneel, not from obedience, but from reverence. The third tone is here, not playing, not recorded, stored, as if the room has kept it intact for you to find. You exhale. Then, gently, You press your palm to the water at the base of the tuning fork. Nothing happens. And then, everything happens. The tone sounds not in the air, not in your ears, but inside your chest. It spreads outward like a ripple that doesn't fade. It joins the other two tones inside you. Not blending, harmonizing. You realize the first two were not complete without this one. 3 notes, 1 chord, and you, the vessel. The walls around you brighten, not with light, but with memory. You see them, the 3 great presences. The spiral below St. Eberhard. The resonance beneath the sea. And this new one, this crystalline hum, clear and sharp. Not soft like bells, or deep like earth, but pure. The keeper of edges. The tone that reminds the other tones to stay in tune. This one is structure. And now, so are you. You rise. You understand. Finally, the shape of what you are part of. Not an order. Not a brotherhood. Not even a network. A scale. You are one of its notes. A pitch kept in tune by presence, memory, and silence. And now, one of the children offers you a stone engraved with the radial lines of the tuning fork. You accept it with bowed head. You carry it in your pocket. That night, beneath a sky clearer than you've ever seen, you dream again. This time, not of spirals, but of chords. Long, sustained, aching with beauty, stretched across time and space. And in the center, always, the quiet beat of something ancient listening, waiting, keeping everything from falling apart. When you wake, the world is unchanged. And yet, nothing is the same, because now you hear all 3. Everywhere, in the rustle of leaves, in the hum of machinery, in the silent spaces between bird calls. The world sings the chord back to you, softly, as if grateful to be remembered. You am back, and the silence listens. You are a chord now, not a name, not a role, an ongoing tone within a harmony stretched across centuries and stone. Where once you sought silence to rest, now you enter it to listen. And when you listen, the world leans closer, eager to be remembered. Each step you take, each breath drawn in places long forgotten, becomes another note added to a scale that only those attuned to the hum can hear. You travel lighter now. The books you once carried, the journals, the scribbled maps, they are all gone, left behind in various hidden alcoves and offering niches, where they now hum faintly alongside the walls. You do not need them. The tones are within you. The places, too. Your steps guide you toward the highlands next. A plateau in South America, where stories linger like mist between jagged cliffs and forgotten shrines. You arrive at a ruined observatory. Long collapsed, its instruments rusted, its records turned to dust. But one pillar remains short, squat, its flat top covered in symbols not quite glyph, not quite spiral. More like musical notation for someone who never learned to read or write, only listen. You touch it. The 3rd tone sings back to you. You kneel. The earth here is different. Dry. Breathless. But the hum is alive. Buried. Yes, but not weakened. It pulses in slow cycles, as if counting stars. You close your eyes, and the observatory roof is rebuilt in your mind, starlit and whole. Its domed shape echoing faintly with every whispered number. You are reminded again, this practice was never about worship. It is calibration. Those who kept these tones were not priests. They were tuners of the world's presence, guardians of harmony. And the notes they kept weren't holy because of gods. They were holy because of memory. And memory, as you now know, is what keeps the silence intact. That night, under a blanket of stars crisp with clarity, you dream without sleeping. You feel the pulse of every place you visited. You hear every tone you've ever touched. But this time they begin to shift. Not discordant, just evolving. A 4th tone emerges. So faint, you think it might be an illusion. But it repeats. Not a tone you've heard. Not one you've seen recorded in the stone. New. You wake before dawn and begin walking west. You don't know why, but you follow the pressure behind your ribs, the same pull that led you to St. Eberhard all those years ago. The land grows rougher, stonier. Birds vanish from the sky. Trees give way to cracked plateaus and orange soil. Then, just as the sun touches the edge of the sky, you find it. A single standing stone, thin as a blade, in the center of a natural amphitheater. It is not carved, not marked, just waiting. You approach. It hums. The fourth tone. Clear, focused, fragile. You realize suddenly it is not anchored. No memory yet tied to it. No silence wrapped around it like cloth. No keep it. It is new, and the world does not yet remember it. You step forward and kneel, and you begin to hum not your tone, not the bells, not the seas, not the crystal chord from Anatolia. You hum this one, the new tone. At first it wavers, but then it joins you, and together you spiral it inward. You shape its silence. You make it rememberable. By nightfall, the wind shifts across the plateau and carries the tone further, down unseen valleys, across ancient riverbeds. You rest beside the stone. You do not know who will come next, but they will hear it, and when they do, they will follow. Not you, the tone. You've helped it awaken. Now it will call others. In the distance, thunder rolls not loud, not sudden, but in rhythm. A chord is expanding, and you are still listening. You stay by the stone for 3 days. Not because you're required to, but because it feels right. The fourth tone needs presence to take root. The way a face becomes familiar before a name. The way a melody lingers after only a few notes. You walk the spiral around the stone, slowly, barefoot, pressing your tone into the ground like breath into a mirror. The amphitheater holds it, amplifies it, bends the sound around itself in gentle loops. The shape of the land remembers what the people have not yet known. You leave at dawn on the fourth day. The stone does not need you anymore. It has become part of the chord. The world has 4 tones now, and the silence listens with greater care. As you travel northward, through fields of wind-bent grass and crumbling roads, you begin to sense something different. The chord has stabilized. It no longer flickers at the edges of your dreams. It vibrates in everything now. The world feels more tuned. You pause often, to feel it, to listen, to rest not from exhaustion, but from reverence. You are not alone. Not anymore. Others have begun to awaken. You pass travelers in cloaks who hum softly as they pass. A musician in a quiet city strums a melody that perfectly outlines the C tone. A boy in a temple garden draws spirals in the dirt and looks up at you with knowing eyes. You do not need to speak to any of them. You only nod, and the silence responds. One evening, you find yourself beside a lake that was not on any map. Its surface is perfectly still. A ring of stones surrounds it, 13 of them, some whole, some cracked, some no more than jagged stumps. But they hum. Each stone carries a variant of the known tones. You walk among them, one by one. Touch. Listen. Each one holds memory, but not yours. These are from before. You kneel and place your hand on the 13th stone, the broken one. It hums weakly, a tone almost forgotten, but not quite. You stay there through the night, listening as the other 12 join in, gently lending their strength. And by dawn, the broken tone rings again. 5th tone, no longer silent. You rise with tears in your eyes. You were wrong. There were never only 4. There were always more, scattered across time, across land, across people who listened and people who forgot. You were not building something new. You were restoring something ancient. The great chord. Not music, not language. Presence. It's older than any one place, any abbey or monastery. Older than any structure or voice or spiral path. It is how the world speaks to itself when no one is speaking aloud. And your role? You're no longer just a listener. You are a resonator. You carry the chord inside you not just to hear, but to amplify, to remind others how to find it again. You visit St. Eberhard once more. The abbey stands unchanged, yet it feels lighter. The stones greet you. The bell turns just once as you pass beneath the tower. The whispering room is quiet, but when you hum, you are answered by 6 tones. Not from above, not from below, from all directions. You smile. It is happening. Not quickly, not loudly, but with certainty. You leave a final mark in the abbey, deep in the spiral chamber beneath it. In a wall beside the old monk's carved name. A symbol made from 5 curves, intersecting at a single, open space. You do not sign it. You do not need to. The tone is your signature, and it will ring long after you're gone. That night, as you sleep in the outer garden, you dream of a world where the silence is not feared, where children learn to hum before they speak, where the shape of cities is guided by resonance, where bells no longer ring for death or alarm, but for remembrance, not of events, of presence. And when you wake, the wind carries a faint vibration across the horizon. A seventh tone. You are ready. The seventh tone is unlike the others. You hear it faintly at first, just a shimmer along the edge of your thoughts, like wind brushing a string too delicate to vibrate. It arrives not through the earth or stone, not through memory or dreams, but through breath. Inhale. There it is. Exhale. Still there. Not as a sound, but as an impression of presence, so still it seems to wait inside each breath you take. A reminder that even silence needs air to live. You walk toward it, not with certainty, but with trust. Days pass. Forests thin. Roads fade. Mountains soften. Eventually, you reach a region where the sky always seems slightly pale, even under the sun. The land here has no name. The maps are vague. Locals speak of it only with shrugs, as if it resists language. The hills roll like old backs, bent beneath invisible weight. The birds don't sing here, but they watch, silently, as if listening for something beneath your feet. You follow the rhythm of your breath, and at the center of a clearing marked only by moss and mist, you find it. The final spiral. Not carved, not constructed, grown. It's a grove, 7 trees arranged in a perfect coil, their trunks bowed inward like monks in prayer. Their roots twist through the earth in curving patterns. Their bark carries faint ridges, tones you feel more than hear. And at the center of this living spiral lies a stone. Not sacred, not grand, just smooth and warm and waiting. You kneel before it, and you breathe. In, out. The tone grows. This time, it doesn't come from the air, or the trees, or even your memory. It comes from you. It is the tone of arrival, the tone of completion, the tone of home. It weaves itself into the others, the first spiral's depth, the sea's lull, the crystal chime of Anatolia, the observation pulse of the stars. The broken lake stone's restoration, and it draws them into itself, not erasing them, embracing them. You have become the chord, and the world begins to echo it back, not through voices, through presences. You feel it, in a temple ruin on the steppe where a child kneels, humming with closed eyes. In a subway tunnel in Prague, where an artist draws a new spiral on the wall. In a storm over the Atlantic, where the waves crash in perfect intervals of 4 and 3. The silence has spread, not like fire, like memory rediscovered. You remain in the grove for one final night. The trees hum with you. Their limbs do not move. The wind does not blow, but you feel them listen. And in your breath, the 7th tone becomes as familiar as your own heartbeat. You do not mark the place. You do not need to. You will find those who are ready. When you rise in the morning, you do not feel an ending. You feel a beginning. The echoes will continue. Others will follow. You're no longer the only listener. You're one of many. A single tone in a growing, eternal chord. And as you walk from the grove, the wind hums behind you, light as thread, low as breath. You close your eyes and smile because the silence remembers you.